Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we are discussing Warbreaker, chapters 48, 49, 50, and 51, wherein Ciri and her husband put together a plan, which doesn't exactly go as planned, but do they ever? Vasher and Vivenna go on a rescue mission. Lightsong and Blushweaver attend a vote, a very important vote of the gods, and then Vasher tries to sneak into the palace and gets captured, kicking off, I think, officially the Sanderlanche portion of the book, if I'm remembering correctly. So anyway, I'm Data, and with me today is
Jamie,
Joe, and Dak.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
To emerge and to breathe anew, for a purpose so far from my own. And this world I've awoken to seems familiar but somehow unknown. And the branches of gold on the skyline reach out to the sweep of the stars. The beginnings and endings of lifetimes, a guidance of light from afar.
So yeah, these 4 chapters, things kind of ramp up. We got some action happening, finally maybe satiating some of you who've been like, where's the action this whole book? So what did you guys think of these 4 chapters?
Well, I, for one, am just shocked that this is the Sanderlanche beginning. No, it's good. I think we've left it in a pretty exciting place. Before I go into my thoughts, particularly about the episode or the chapters that we read, I have been going back listening to our earlier podcasts of Warbreaker just to kind of go where were our heads at, and then really what were we thinking. I just would like to just bring up that I was like, I liked him. He's a really cool guy, and I was like, I heard myself say it and went, oh my God, why did I say that? So if you ever need proof that we haven't read the book at the time, definitely listen to that. Yeah, there's some things that we said that I'm like, that's pretty on the money, and some things that I'm like, oh no, not on the money at all. Yeah, anyway, so that's fun. It doesn't help me with my predicaments I'm learning. I still have no idea where we're going. But anyway, these chapters in particular, I liked that Ciri and Susebron have kind of got their plan together, and was not surprised at all that it didn't come off the way they had hoped. I think that's put them in a bit of a predicament. I thought it was pretty cool that Vasher made it into the palace. I really thought he was going for Lightsong at the time, and I was like, oh, I wonder what their history is. That's intriguing. I hope that we get to see those characters actually meet up. Vivenna and Vasher, I'm really loving I sort of wish they'd met up earlier. I think I would love to see more of those two working together. That's really cool where that's going. And yeah, obviously the kind of stunning end of where we have Denth and Tongfa going back through our episodes previously. And I just got through where Vivenna had kind of met them for the first time, and they were talking about, kidnapping doesn't pay and all this sort of stuff. It's taken on a total different meaning now when you know what you know, and it actually just makes them even more icky and chilling. Yeah, I don't like them. I retract my earlier statement. I don't like them. They're not cool. And they're proving that even in these chapters with Vasher. But yeah, a bit scary. Excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, especially the jokes like Tongfa being like, oh, I like breaking fingers and stuff like that, where you thought it was a joke at first, and now it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's completely dark, and the bit about chopping off toes, and it's like, well, we don't do it. We don't get. Oh, I can't remember exactly the line. We don't do it for some reason, but it was like very much I do that. That's okay. We can do that. We're just not being paid to do that, or something. I don't know. It was weird, strange, but yeah, it's icky. It's icky.
Mm-hmm.
She had no idea. And we didn't, as the reader, have any idea at the time. But now you go through it and you're like, oh, they played her the entire time. There was nothing genuine there at all.
Yeah, I'm telling you, on reread, I'm just like, I hate you guys so much for fooling me so hard. Because
Yeah.
we have no idea, and they seem so funny and entertaining, and then in retrospect, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
ugh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, they even made the line about like it was something about the kidnapping. They spoke specifically about kidnapping, and I can't
Mhm.
remember what it was off the top of my head, but the exact words, the way it was written. Gosh, Brandon's good. That was very clever.
Yes, he's so good at foreshadowing. We've discovered over these books where it's just like you get to the twists and you're like, oh my gosh, there was so much foreshadowing for that, but it was written so subtly that I never noticed. Although you
Yeah.
guys do notice a lot. You guys like Dak was the first one. I think it was just like there's something about these guys that I don't trust them.
Yes, the second episode they were in, I think that's when Dak and Joe started turning on Dents and the crew, and I'm going, I like them. I think they're cool. Like an idiot.
Well, you were in good company. I too felt that way the first time. I'm like, these guys are fun. I like them.
Yeah,
Ah, well, live and learn.
that's it. But these chapters were great. I look forward to seeing what I don't get in these chapters in a couple of months' time.
We're running out of book for there to be like little hints that are going to pay
true.
off at this point.
That's true. But it's exciting to be definitely getting into the pointy end of the story now.
Mm-hmm. It's always fun, and then probably for you guys always tough to be like, oh, I have to stop reading now that things are getting interesting.
Yeah, always tough. I always get to this point and like, okay, we've got 2 more weeks of chapters to read after what we've just read. So I think it's 2.
2 episodes left
2.
after this. Yeah.
Yes, 2 episodes left. So there's not a lot of book left to wrap everything up. And I always get to this point where I panic and go, he's not going to be able to do it. He's not going to be able to wrap it up. There's not another book to go on to at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be a satisfying ending. And I always panic that I'm like, it's not going to happen because I've really enjoyed the book so far. I was like, please be worth it. I'm sure it will, but
You don't want to end up like Joe at the end of Well of Ascension. Like, this book didn't have an ending. Dang it.
Yeah. I enjoyed these chapters. I think I agree with Jamie. I think the book is to its detriment to not have had Vasher and Vivenna team up sooner. I get the idea that like the amount of story that we had to have to establish Vivenna completely trusting Denth and Tong Fa, like it's a more of a hurtful twist to have that amount of story go on before she and Vasher team up. But I feel like it's almost to the book's detriment that Brandon waited so long to have these two team up together. And I would say, I've had problems with pacing in Brandon's books before, but I think this one, like and of course the book's not finished yet, but I was getting prepared to say this was my favorite book that we've read so far, but the pacing has maybe taken that away. So we'll see by the time that the end of the book is done how I feel, but right now I feel like the pacing really killed it for me.
Interesting.
But the most interesting story to me right now, which I know all the stories are probably about to collide, but the most interesting story to me now is the Vivenna Vasher stuff. I almost don't care what Lightsong's going to do. I almost don't care what Susabran and Ciri are going to do. It's pretty much just the Vasher and Vivenna show for me right now. So, but that's a personal preference. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying everything. I just wish we got a little bit more action. I feel like we're still not getting enough, and we're getting to the end of the book. So like, even if it's like action packed all the way to the end, like, I don't know. I feel like we could have had a little bit more of this sprinkled throughout the book, but maybe that's not the kind of story he wanted to tell. Maybe action packed is not what he was going for.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned towards or sometime in the middle that it was like Elantris was also not a real actiony book, and I think that's just the kind of story this one is more than Mistborn, which was all about the fighting.
Yeah, and I'd say this is similar to Elantris, and this book is similar to Elantris in several other ways as well. I think thematically it's very similar in that there's constantly like a comparison of my perspective is not your perspective. From my perspective, you may be evil. From your perspective, I may be evil. That kind of stuff. I feel like that was very heavy in Elantris, and it's very prevalent in this book too, so much so that the characters actually call it out. Like Vasher says that, I think in this group of chapters at one point. Or maybe he said it in a previous group, and Vivenna's just recalling it in this set. But like, it's a thing, it's very predominant in this book. So
Yeah, from my perspective, the Jedi are evil. So,
correct. Yeah. Which, I mean, I feel like that's a phrase we've said several times. So maybe that's just Brandon's thing. Like, different perspectives make the story more interesting because people, feel that they're doing good when they're maybe objectively not doing good. So, but anyway, yeah. No, I'm
Baratheon trying to save
exactly
the people of Erelon. Yeah.
Yeah, Elantris. Yeah, like I said, very similar situation. I feel like so yeah, I'm excited to read to get to the end. But yeah, and I'm gonna reserve my judgment a little bit. But I am surprised by like some of the choices as far as pacing have been in this book. I'm like, really? Okay, well. But yeah, there's still plenty. There's still a good amount of book left. So who knows? I may get turned around on it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I think the end of this book is going to be an interesting and kind of different from some of the other books we've read in that, well, for example, I mentioned last time that I was like, yeah, there's this thing with Calm Seer where in the annotations it tells us like the truth about like what happened with Calm Seer that Lightsong is kind of remembering. And I was like, well, I can tell you about that when we get to the end. There's several things, including things that I came up when I was going through these chapters again. And I'm like, I can't talk about that right now. It doesn't come up in the book, but if I talk about it now, it would spoil potentially things that do happen in the book. So there's a lot of interesting bits that I can't tell you until we get to the end.
And I almost wonder, like, because this book, because of the way that it was written, did it not go through as much of an editing process as maybe some of his other works, or because like he did this kind of chapter by chapter and let people read it, right?
Yeah, he was like writing it openly. I think actually it may have gone through more editing for that reason than it might have otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious because there's like so much interesting information that I feel like is so tertiary. Mm-hmm. Like we're almost all the way through the book, and I understand canonically they say like we don't really understand the magic system completely. I get that, but it's like we're almost all the way through the book, and I still like have almost no idea how the magic works. And like I feel like that's an issue for me as a reader, just because I want to know. That's like the most interesting thing to me in each of these planets is like how the magic system works. And again, it's like Elantris. We don't know how the magic system works until like the end of the book.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think that his explanation that we got in the last time or the time before, where he gives the whole scientific overview of here's how it works as far as we know. I think that may be the most in-depth explanation that we're going to get.
Yeah, and which I mean I get, but at the same time it seems like a shame because it's such an interesting idea that it's almost too bad that it's not more transparently explained.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of stuff that and it'll come up in the annotations that I picked out for today too, but a lot of stuff he's like, yeah, that'll get explored more in the sequel. So there's a lot of
if it ever comes.
Well, yeah, and that's what he always says. He's like, yeah, I'll talk more about that in the sequel if I ever write it. So, yeah. But there's a lot of details like stuff about the 5 scholars or other like really interesting little lore bits. Like we talked about, I mentioned last time that he's like, we're going to understand more about I almost called them unalived, the lifeless. He's lifeless. Like, yeah, he's going to explain more about how those work in the sequel. We're going to find out more about the 5 scholars in the sequel. We're going to find out more about how the magic works in the sequel. So yeah, there's a lot of
I forget
stuff
what are the 5 scholars. Do we know?
They've gotten mentioned several times as like being these scholars that made like discoveries of.
Okay.
I think Denth even mentions at one point that like Ichor alcohol was discovered by one of the 5 scholars, but he can't remember which one it was.
Okay.
So yeah, that's stuff that he's going to go more into at a different time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like, I want to know more that we still don't find out by the end of the book, and hopefully someday.
Give me more.
Yeah, these chapters are pretty good. Like we're coming up to the end. I'm interested. I'm glad things are coming to a head. Like because I agree with Joe. I think the pacing of this book has been a bit, spinning the wheels before we got to this point. So I'm glad that we're finally coming to see where it's all coming together. Because I feel like I spent a lot of this book just waiting for that to happen. And I also agree. Like I don't really get how the magic system works. I think the difference between this book and Elantris was the way the magic works was part of the mystery. So we were engaged with trying to figure out how it worked. Whereas in this book, it's kind of just, people know, we're just not really getting much of an explanation. So, and I get it, because I remember I saw something online. It's like, if you're writing a book in the modern world and the characters get into a car, the author's not going to explain to you how an internal combustion engine works. So maybe it's just you don't have to explain everything. So that's fair. But I'm still just in the dark. It's like, how does this all work? I don't quite know. But yeah, as far as these chapters themselves, I'm not sure where Ciri and Susebron are. I don't think Susebron's making it out of this book alive. So like that. So that could be. I'm concerned there. Like, he's far from my favorite character ever, but he doesn't deserve to die. But yeah, it's the Vasher and Vivenna show right now, especially now that the mercenaries have showed up again. And gotta tell you, when Dent stepped out, and it's like he said something. It's like, you know what I like about you, like, Vasher, you're so predictable. It's like, why does everything start out with, you know what I hate about, or you know what I like about? Like, oh my god, dude, pick a different song.
He's got his shtick, and he's just gonna go with it.
Yeah. Ugh. Man. Yeah. Like, interesting stuff, but I'm just like, all right, cool. Let's see where this goes.
I love, like you've mentioned before, that it's like they just keep harping on the same, like, mercenary jokes, and it never bothered me before, so it's interesting to hear how it bugs you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things I feel about this book, and I think it's similar to Well of Ascension, comes down to the way we're reading it.
Right.
I feel like I would probably enjoy both those books a lot more if we just read them start to finish like you normally would read a book. Like, a lot of the other books, like, I think the way we've read them have been really beneficial. And even in this one, we picked up on hints that we wouldn't have otherwise reading chapter to chapter. But I do think because of the way this and Well of Ascension are paced, it has made those two books really drag a bit. Whereas if we just read them at a regular reading pace, it probably wouldn't have felt as bad. We might have still felt it a bit, but not nearly as bad as we have.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what books may have benefited from that. I guess, like, Elantris is designed in, like, the 3-chapter chunks because, they rotate between the character viewpoints. So it might be beneficial to read, like, if you read each of the viewpoints, but we didn't even do that. Sometimes they got mixed up because we were reading more than 3 chapters at a time. So
yeah. And we talked about it in Elantris, but, like, sometimes it'd be a case of sticking to that 3-chapter triad really hampered it a bit, because, like, in this chapter, it's half a page of Hrathen and Dilaf chatting, and then it goes to the next raid, and it's like, wow, you just needed something to fill that void there, didn't you?
Yeah, I think he learned his lesson on that, and he's not doing that again.
I mean, it was a worthwhile experiment. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think I agree that this book has given me a lot of similarity vibes with Elantris, and in a weird way, it's actually made me appreciate Elantris a bit more. Thinking back, I'm just like, it was cool about the mystery of how the magic worked. It was cool with, like, the city of the dead, and like that's your hook, and you're just trying to engage them. Oh my god, how are they gonna, like, fucking get out of this? Like, yeah, like, in a weird way, Warbreaker has made me appreciate Elantris a lot more.
Interesting. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess let's do this thing. We have chapters. We start out with Ciri and Susebron just, like, in bed together, hanging out. He's sleeping, and she's just like, how did I end up here in my life? Like, did not see this coming. Also, yeah, we're kind of dumb. We only had one thing to avoid, and we're not doing that. And I do like he wakes up and he's like, I love you, and she's like, I love you back. And then it's like, okay, so this is going to be a problem, right? And neither of them understands, like, the whole having, like, Dak predicted last time, oh, they're going to have a kid, like, she's going to get pregnant after the first time they were together. But no, they've been together, it seems like, several times at least. I don't remember how long, if it specifies how long it's been. But he's like, so, I mean, how long before you start showing? And she's like, I really don't know. Some women back home, like, complained that they couldn't have children as fast as they wanted, so maybe it doesn't always happen right away. I don't know. So yeah, neither of them knows enough about this process to understand. Kind of awkward for them. And then Susebron's like, okay, I've made a decision. I want to try to take control of my kingdom. And so they come up with a plan for how they're going to make this work, because the priests don't really want to listen to them. Like, he's telling them, I don't want to go to war. And they're like, oh yeah, it's whatever. They try to reassure him, but they don't do anything. But also they've established why he can't just come out and try to reveal himself or whatever, because there's a bunch of people around who would stop him. So they have to come up with a plan. And he suggests that she go to Lightsong and try to like get him into their confidence to help them. And she's like, well, I mean, maybe, but what if we just like ran off to Idris? And he's like, well, no, if we run to Idris, then the troops are just going to come after us and we'd be bringing the war to your home, basically. And she brings up, it's like, oh, but you need a breath every week to survive. And he's like, well, actually, no, I can just live off of the bunch of breaths I already have, and I'll like consume one a week and it'll keep me alive. Which she's like, oh, well, that changes things. And I don't know that we've ever talked about or even wondered about like how that would work. I don't know if you guys just assumed that that's the way it would work, or if you never thought about it. But I don't know. What do you think?
That never actually occurred to me.
Okay.
I think I postulated that in like the very first episode because it talks about how they need a breath a week. And I said, Vasher in the prologue keeps talking about he used to have all these breaths. And at the time, we didn't know that you could possibly give away less than all your breaths.
Mm-hmm.
And so I postulated that maybe he was returned, and the reason that he used to have all these breaths and doesn't anymore is that he slowly used them all up.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I had kind of forgotten, and that was one of the annotations that I was going to pull out today. Is that it was like, by the way, Vasher used to have all these breaths, and not long before the book started, he like lost his temper and drew Nightblood, and Nightblood like ate up a bunch of his breaths, and that's what happened to him.
Oh, interesting. So Nightblood eats the breaths. Okay.
Nightblood eats souls.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, and that's probably a slight spoiler because I think that is going to be revealed at some point in the book, but it's not like.
I mean, based on what we've seen so far, it's pretty clear he was doing some kind of absorption thing and killing people.
And he was like that one guy who touched it but didn't die from it, had the color leached out of him, and color is tied to your soul on this world. So, like, if we thought about it a bit, we probably could have jumped to that conclusion.
Yeah. We could have had a jump to conclusions, Matt moment, I guess.
Off a space reference, nice. What about you, Jamie? What did you think about before this? Did you think that the breaths would work like that?
I have a feeling that we'd kind of thought about it. We were sort of wondering if the return just didn't know that they had the breath, so maybe they didn't know. I don't know that I thought about it in exactly the same kind of concept, but if they need one a week and the God King was getting 2 a week, I think we just assumed they were banking them, which it kind of is, really. Like he's got enough breath to keep going, but he's also then storing a bunch of breath. Like he can't do anything with it. He can't waken anything. It's like Theory made the comment earlier that, they're calling me vessel. Like realistically, the God King is just a vessel to hold on to all the breath. If he's getting 2 and he only needs 1, well, he's constantly adding to the pile there. What's happening with that? I don't see why he couldn't use it.
Yeah. That it's logical. Although I appreciate what you said about bringing back up the God King being a vessel thing, because it leads me to another thing I wanted to get y'all's opinion on, because he's talking about like, if I come out and, reveal myself, everyone will listen to me basically because I'm the God King. They have to do what I say. But we've kind of established that the God King is really kind of just a vessel, and maybe only the priests know that. But the God King, as far as we know, has never come out and like commanded people to do things. They have a system of government set up that we see it working here, where the gods vote on stuff to decide. So do you think they would even like listen? Is the God King allowed to just pop out and be a dictator and be like, no, this is what I want to do, and circumvent the process of voting that exists in the government currently?
Well, this is kind of exactly where we are, really, isn't it? Because that's exactly what he wants to do, but they know that that's what he wants to do, whether they're still spying on him or whether it's just coincidence that they've gone, cool, now's time to make everyone think that you're pregnant or whatever. But they've stopped him from doing that. So whether they know or they don't know, if Cinderbron's been talking to some of his priests, because I think he mentioned that he had been in discussions, well, they're obviously intelligent people from what we can see, if not, misguided, but intelligent. They would stop him if there's any chance that they believe that he's going to come out and communicate to the rest of the returned or the priests or anything about what he actually wants. If these leaders don't want that, they're not going to let that go.
It's true.
they've already cut out his tongue, so he can't use anything. Like he can't use the breath that he's got. Like they're not going to let him come out and say something. Everything would be vetted.
That's a good point.
It's one of those things, we've got Vivenna who's been kidnapped and doesn't even know it. Unfortunately, the same sort of thing. He doesn't even know that he's basically a prisoner just to keep all of their breaths.
That's true. Yeah.
Aside.
He didn't know. I guess he kind of does now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any other opinions for you guys? Would the God King be able to overthrow his own government?
I think that's kind of what Blushweaver's been preparing for. I think it sounded like, at least originally, that her fears were not only about the princess, but about the fact that like their system of government would fall. And if she's got half the armies of the God King and she's changed the commands and stuff, it's like, yeah, he could break them if he had the ability to use his tongue, but he really doesn't. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how he would break them. They always say, well, the God King could break your stuff pretty easily because he's got all this breath. But like, I don't think Susupran knows how to do it. And right. So whether she knows that or not, I think she's kind of been preparing for something like this to happen because she doesn't trust Ciri. And so I don't think it would go well.
Okay.
Yeah, they made the point. Yeah, she mentions like she said something the Light Song about the God King's got the codes. Oh, how reassuring. So it seems though she's really hedging her bets to strike out on her own there, separate from the God King.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Just curious there. All right, so there's going to be a general assembly in a couple of days, which we do see. It's going to be to vote on the war. And so they come up with a plan. Ciri's going to go and talk to Light Song and get the other gods to help. And then Susupran's going to be like reveal to everyone that he has no tongue, and they're going to go for it. And like all plans that you come out and discuss in depth before they happen, it doesn't work out. But they tried. Then we get what to me is kind of a weird scene in the next chapter of Vasher like hanging outside Vivenna's window on an awakened rope to like spy on her practicing awakening.
It is kind of weird and voyeuristic, but at the same time, right after this, we get a perspective from Vivenna that she's not sure why she doesn't want him to watch, but she doesn't want him to watch. So At that point, maybe he's aware of that, so he's like, I'll just watch her without her knowing.
Yeah, that's fair. And she's attempting what seems to me like a fairly complicated awakening, where she tries to awaken a piece of cloth to like crawl across the room, pick up a cup of water, and bring it back. And it doesn't tell us, I don't think, what command she's trying to use. But it seems like a pretty not a simple one to me, at least. There's an interesting little note in here that instinctive awakening, the ability to awaken objects without training or practice, was granted to those of the sixth heightening. So there's another power that you get when you rise up in heightenings. You can just start being like, I can just awaken things. I can figure these things out without having to practice or experiment. That'd be pretty nice. That was one step beyond even what the Returned had with their single deific breath, which confirms a theory I think Joe had all the way at the beginning, that they have like one breath that is different somehow that takes them up to the fifth heightening.
Yeah. Again, I think that was like all wrapped into my Vasher is a Returned theory, which I think I got some credence for, which we'll talk about later.
But this also explains, by the way, in case it wasn't clear, why the Returned die after a week if they don't get an extra breath, and also why they can't awaken even though they're of the fifth heightening, because they only have one breath. It's just like a super breath. So if they go through a week and don't get another breath, they consume that one breath, and then they die after that. They can't awaken because they only have one breath to use for awakening, and if they use it on something, they would die. Yeah. It's also how they heal people, by using the one like super breath and giving it out to heal someone. And that's why that kills them also.
So they are returned with a single breath.
Right.
That's their deific breath, and then they feed off the breath of the children.
Yeah. So it's like if you have two breaths, you consume that other breath first. But
non-deific breath.
Right, yeah. But if all you have left is your one super breath, then you eat that one.
Super breath.
Deific breath sounds nicer.
Yeah, it does. So my question, which may never be answered. They can give their deific breath to heal somebody. Can they give their deific breath away to someone, whether that person be regular person or another returned? Like, could a returned have 2 super breaths, or could somebody become returned by being given a deific breath?
That is an excellent question. Can you artificially create a returned by like sacrificing one return to make another one?
Or a super breath? Also, the 5th heightening, do we know how many individual breaths is around the 5th heightening?
It discussed it earlier. Let me bring up the chart and I can tell you roughly. It's not like an exact thing, but roughly it takes the 5th heightening is about 2,000 breaths. So this one deific breath is equal to about 2,000.
Yeah, I was just interested because, we get some actual facts about Nightblood's creation in this section, and he talks about how it takes 1,000 breaths to create something like Nightblood, and I was wondering, I wonder if like he actually has like a deific breath, and that's what created Nightblood. That would have been interesting, but that doesn't sound like he needs that many breaths. But maybe I don't know.
He also says that you have to be the 9th heightening to awaken metal or stone. And according to the
it was
chart,
ridiculously high.
Yeah, that sounds right.
This chart says that's about 20,000 breaths. So creating, awakening metal or stone is real tough.
So this Sashara character had a lot of breaths.
And so eventually Vivenna does manage to get the cloth, do what she wants, and she's very pleased with herself. And we also get the note that Vasher has awakened this rope to like follow instructions that he like based on the number of taps that he makes on it, which also seems super complicated to me. That it's like awaken it to be like, when I tap you 2 times, lower me, but when I tap you 3 times, raise me.
Yeah, it almost seems like he has like an exponential amount of like focus and brain power almost. It reminds me of Kavoth, kind of like the amount of brain power you have to kind of separate things in your mind and be able to focus on them separately.
And he's got Nightblood with him, and Nightblood's like, I like her. I'm glad we didn't kill her. She's very pretty, don't you think? And Vasher's like, you can't tell. He's like, I can tell. I've decided that I can tell. And so Vasher comes in, and Joe's right. There is this bit here where we switch to Vivenna's perspective, and she's like, why do I even care if he sees me practicing? She's not sure, but she cares. And so they're talking about what are they going to do. She was hoping that they could like spy on Denth and get the jump on him the next time he does something, but Denth has vacated the buildings that he used previously with her, so that's not going to work. And Vasher's like, okay, let's go talk to more people. And she's like, look, I understand that, these people can help, but I don't think that's enough. Like, we're not accomplishing enough by meeting with these people to actually try to stop Denth from starting this war. And so she suggests maybe we should meet with the priests. Like, the priests have power. They can get attention of their gods, right? And Vasher's like, the priests are fickle. Even Nanrova switched sides on me. And she's like, wait, what? Who? Oh, he's the high priest of Stillmark? I thought he was solid. We met a few times, talked about his opposition to the war. And she's like, hold on. Nanrova, we did something to that guy. And so we saw what she thought was the robbery of a shop. They stole a bunch of salt from a guy, and that was supposed to undermine the war effort. And the carriage, they knocked over the carriage and spilled a bunch of coins as a distraction. Well, the carriage belonged to Nanrova, and Denth was conspicuously not like she didn't see what he was doing during this. So maybe it wasn't a coincidence that this important opponent to the war, that it was his carriage that got knocked over as a quote unquote distraction. And so Vasher goes out to try to get some answers. And eventually Vivenna does a little more introspection, which I feel like at this point, has Vivenna done anything but introspect for most of this book, quite honestly. But anyway.
Yeah, it's like her superpower.
And I think Jamie brought it up last time where she's like, man, it must be hard just like this constant not being sure of yourself or whatever. I forget how she phrased it. Vasher bursts back in and her hand goes to her chest, and he's like, you should start reaching for your sword when you're startled. There's little reason to grab your shirt unless you're planning to rip it off. And she's like, oh, she's embarrassed by this. But I like that line from it. It's pretty funny. So
just imagining them about to just go, all right, grab the shirts. Ah! They all just hulk out and run down the street. We are here to breathe at things.
And so it turns out that it was the store that was the distraction from whatever they grabbed out of the carriage, something valuable, presumably, that caused Nanrova to switch sides, which we find out here in a minute was his daughter. And so Vasher is going to go and try to find these guys and figure out what they took and get it back. And he starts putting on these various clothes that we've seen him wear before, like the shirt with the sleeves that are like all ribbons or whatever, or at least near the wrist. They're like cut in long ribbons. And he awakens it with, "Upon call, become my fingers and grip that which I must." And she's like, wait, was that a command? That's way more complicated than any command that I've ever heard. And he just goes, "Yeah, it's too complicated for you. Whatever. Shut up." And then he does his pants, "Become as my legs and give them strength." And so she doesn't argue with him, but she's just like, she files these away. Like, okay, these could be useful commands. I'm going to try these.
And that ticked to me because, like, one thing we've sort of forgotten throughout this book because it hasn't really come up a lot, but she was the book smart princess. Like, she memorized everything about, logistics and stuff she could read about. And so she's being given information here, and it's like, I'm going to remember that. And we know she will because she's got a great memory. So I'm like, oh, that's going to pay off later, and that's going to be fun because that's what she does. She uses her knowledge once she has it and applies it. And when she does that, she's actually really good at the situation. So I'm like, I like this. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, maybe she's finally getting to play to her strengths a little bit. That's a good point.
Yeah.
He tells his cloak to protect me. And then he picks up Nightblood and he's like, "Are you coming? We're going to go capture some of those thieves and ask them some questions." And she's like, "Won't having me there just make it harder for you?" And he's like, "Well, it depends. If we get in a fight and you get in my way, then it'll be more difficult. If we get into a fight and half of them attack you instead of me, it makes things easier for me." Assuming you don't defend me. And he's like, "No, that's a good assumption. Yeah." Don't expect me to protect you.
I'm not gonna, so
Hey, at least he's honest.
Yeah. And so she decides that she's going. And he's like, "All right, fine. Put on your sword." And then he shows her how to hold the sword correctly. He still hasn't taught her anything about using it. And she's like, "What does it matter if I can hold it right?" And he's like, "Well, if you look threatening, some of the ones attacking you might pause." And he has her put most of her breath away. You don't want to draw attention as they're going out to explore, so they go. And in my version of the book, there are some errors here where whenever Vasher talks in the next few pages, it has him as Denth instead. So in my book, all of a sudden it's like, "Let's go," Denth said. And I was like, wait, what? When did Denth come in?
That changes the narrative entirely.
Right, yeah.
That would have been so confusing. Yes.
So all of a sudden, he pulled off his Mission Impossible style mask.
Yeah.
And it was Denth all along.
That would be really like that would be the twistiest twist of all, where she realizes Denth is a bad guy and that Vasher is a good guy, and then Vasher is actually Denth all along. Yeah, no.
Like, what about the bits where we saw inside Vasher's heads? They were a hallucination by the sword. What? The more you try to explain this, the more confusing it gets.
Right. So they find the hideout, and Vasher knocks out the guards, but they're too young. They're not. They need someone more important to question. So, but also, he says, "I can't use Nightblood. When he's done with the group, there's never anyone left to question." So Vasher makes some more little straw men, which Brandon wanted to bring back from the prologue to bring us full circle here, and he tells them to find tunnels. And Vivenna's like, "Well, that's a more abstract command than he led me to believe was possible." And there's a little annotation here where Brandon mentions that he kind of regrets not having any like kind of normal level awakeners in this book to show you kind of what the average person can do with awakening. We have Vivenna, who's just learning and knows basically nothing about awakening. And we have Vasher, who's like one of the best awakeners ever. So he can do all this crazy shit that no one else would be able to do because of his experience and his study and stuff. And she can hardly do anything. So we don't get like the average dude.
The one guy who can just make like the little drinking bird thing out of straw. Like that's the only thing he can do. Like he can't do anything else.
One of the straw men they start looking around, and one of them starts jumping up and down, indicating that I guess it's found a tunnel, and the other ones come over and also start to bounce. I love that they can't talk, so that's how they let you know. And then he takes his breath back, apologizing to each one. And she's like, why would he apologize to them? And in the annotations, Brandon's like, I don't think even Vasher really knows why he does. But I think maybe some part of him, after what has happened with Nightblood, realizes that awakening can create more than like mindless things. So they sneak down into this place through this secret tunnel entrance, or which really probably supposed to be an exit, like a secret bolt hole, as he says.
Secret tunnel through the mountain. Can't let it go by without saying.
Right?
That's true.
And I like that Vasher kind of stops and looks at everybody, and she can't see what's going on, so she like pokes him in the back to get him to move over so she can also see. And what they find is a cage with a little girl in it. And she's like, that's what they took. They took his daughter, which is pretty messed up. And Vasher does not seem to take this very well, because once they notice him, before they notice him, like she looks at Vasher and she can tell how upset he is, and then she can see one of his eyes in the glare of the light, because they're in the darkness, but there's a little light, and it says she saw fury in that single lit eye. And when they spot them, Vasher says, get the child out, and then he just starts like beating the crap out of these guys. And so he's taking Nightblood and just like bashing them, and she can hear bones breaking as he's beating on these guys.
What Nightblood was thinking throughout all this.
He's probably like talking to Vasher, like, kill him. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I like that.
You're supposed to say, hey, what are you doing? No, let them try and take me, damn it. I'm supposed to do this, not you.
And then we get a guy coming up behind, and this is the first time we get to see Vasher's cloak like do the protect me command. And so a guy comes up behind him to hit him, and the cloak just reaches out and grabs him long enough for Vasher to like swing around and bash him in the face. And on the other end of the room, Vivenna is trying to open this cage, which is locked, and she's like, oh crap, what do I do? And she pulls a little thread out, and she tries to awaken it to unlock things, but it doesn't really work. So then she tries twist things, and that does work. The thread like spins around in the lock and twists it, and it pops open.
Yeah, the former locksmith in me just kind of went, oh, hello.
Wouldn't that be useful?
Yeah.
But the girl is too scared of Vivenna to come out of the cage.
Yeah.
And then Vivenna looks over, and everyone is basically on the ground. Vasher's beating the shit out of all of these guys. It's his body's just strewn around, and he's looking scary. She says that he looks bigger, taller, broader of shoulders, more threatening. And she can hear the voice. It sounds distant, but she can hear Nightblood being like, draw me, kill them. And so, this is the section where it's like, this is how he lost his breaths not long ago. We got in one of these situations and lost his temper and just like pulled out Nightblood.
Yeah. But yeah, the getting taller thing, that makes me think somehow he like hides his abnormal stature if he's returned. Like he somehow found
is that one of the
like,
things you were saying supports your return?
Yes, that he's returned because he could somehow, she said he grows taller, and like, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of repression of your deific breath that makes you not look returned. I don't know.
It's as good a theory as any to explain. I mean, that's my main thing when you guys theorized at the beginning that he might be returned. I'm like, but he looks so different from the other return that we see. But yeah, I mean, if he can hide it somehow and change how he looks, then that would be an explanation.
That makes sense, because I had no clue what the hell was going on with this bit.
Well, I mean, in a minute, she's like, okay, he doesn't look like that. Maybe it's probably just the lighting. So she's like, Vasher, the girl won't come out. You've defeated them. No need to draw the sword. And he kind of snaps out of his rage. And she's like, colorless monsters.
Yeah, but you hear Nightblood going, yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
You totally need to draw me and kill them.
You're out there somewhere, Beer Baron, and I'll find you. No, you won't.
That's exactly. Oh, it's a great moment. But so Vasher comes over, and the little girl goes right to him. No problem. And she's like, do you know her? And he's like, no. I mean, I knew he had kids. I never met any of them. And she said, well, then why did she come to you? And Vasher completely ignores that question. And we find out here in a minute, also, the dogs like Vasher. Kids and dogs are just fans. One of the
it's because he's got a lot of soul.
One of the annotations I wanted to, so giving Vasher temper issues is part of a minor quest on my part to find more realistic conflicts and personality traits for my characters. It seems that much of the time, the flaw that writers give their heroes are really just backhanded talents. A hero is too bold or too much of a bookworm. I'm as guilty as anybody. Ciri's character flaws are an example. Which, pause for a second. I guess Ciri's flaws are that she's like too, I mean, flighty might be the right word. I don't. She doesn't care enough.
Yeah,
that she's strong and rebellious.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But like that ends up being a good thing in this instance because that's what
It ends up
Superon
working
needed.
out for her. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what he's saying there. I think he's overlooking the fact that the flaws that the heroes have in a lot of these situations that are backhanded things, like they're flaws insofar as their regular lives, but then they get put in situations where those flaws, like a very remote situation where those flaws actually become a benefit. It's like if they weren't put in that specific situation, their flaws would have been flaws their whole life, but for plot reasons, they wound up somewhere where those flaws actually were good. So,
Yeah, that's fair. He says it's a tough balance. Real people tend to have flaws that make them, well, unlikable sometimes, or at least difficult to get along with. We get grumpy, we make bad decisions, we say things we don't mean. It's hard to convey this in a story without making the characters unlikable. Which I think that is a complaint that I've heard, that people are like, I don't really like Vasher. He's kind of a jerk. But that's kind of the point of his character. Is Brandon's trying to make somebody who's like, he's not that much of a people person.
Also, like, he's really not that much of a jerk once you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, do you mean he's a jerk because he's not nice to Vivenna? Like, why should he be?
Rude and coarse, I think, in general.
Yeah.
But like,
I
why?
was gonna say it's like more a general coarseness, probably. Like he's not polite, even to people that he does like. I think so.
I mean, I guess, but again, why should he be?
Yeah.
We don't know what his like complete history is. Like maybe he has good reason to treat people that way, to keep them at a distance.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, he does apologize for it, so at least there's that. Like he's self-aware enough to be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I lose my temper sometimes. I'm not very good at like talking to people. It's like, this is why I didn't want to talk to you, because I'm not good at it.
But good with kids. So there's that. So they take this little girl back to the mansion where she lives. And he goes, child, I'm going to say some words. I want you to repeat them and mean them. And he makes Vivenna back off. Like, you're not allowed to hear this part. And what Vivenna can see with her, like, she's got some of her breath back in her. And she says the girl's biochromatic aura, the normal one that all people have, flickers slightly. And she says, Denth told me it was all or nothing. You have to give away all the breath you hold. You can't give away part of a breath for sure. Denth, it had been proven in other instances, was also a liar. But whatever Vasher does here, Vivenna infers. I don't know that we can know that for certain, but she infers that he's made this girl forget what happened, the experience that she's had the last like 2 months. Because where she was terrified and wouldn't talk, now she's kind of chatty and normal. It's like, where's Daddy? I'm dirty. Mommy doesn't like it when I get dirty. This dress is dirty too. Are we going home? Where have we been? It's late. I shouldn't be out. Who's that woman? So yeah, she
That's not something we would know of an Awakener though, right? That definitely took me by surprise.
No, we've never seen anything even hinting that something like that's possible.
He's done the Men in Black thing, wipe their memory.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what he did, cool, because, you know, getting rid of her horribly traumatic 2-month experience is going to be a huge benefit for her, I think. But yeah, that's.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm not concerned that he did that. I think that was probably the right thing to do in this situation. How did he do that?
Uh-huh.
What? And I guess that's the point. But what?
Yeah, it's real weird. I agree. So they go in and there's these guard dogs that start barking until they get close to Vasher, and they're like, oh, hey, this guy's cool. And they start trying to lick him and hopping up on him. Although she does note that they're avoiding Nightblood, I think. So dogs don't like Nightblood. I don't blame them. And the guy comes out in his like nightgown or whatever, and he's like, oh my gosh, thank you. Why did you bring her back? And Vasher's like, the men who took her have been punished. That's all that should matter. Wait, do I know you? And he's like, yeah, we met. I asked you to argue against the war. And he's like, oh yeah. I mean, not that you needed to encourage me. I was going to do that anyway. But then they took her and they said that I had to stop or they'd kill her. And Vasher goes, take your child, keep her safe, and make certain this kingdom doesn't use its lifeless for a slaughter. And then they leave. And Vivenna's like, how'd you make the dog stop barking? And he does not respond to that either. But what he does tell her is that you've redeemed yourself. Denth would have kidnapped that girl even without you, and I wouldn't have been able to find her and get her home. So, like, this makes up for the stuff that you did, the bad stuff that you helped Denth do. And Joe's right. He does say, like, I'm sorry I lost my temper. A warrior's supposed to be calm. When you duel, you can't let anger control you. That's why I've never been a very good duelist. And then she kind of like looks down on this priest for being so rich, and Vasher's like, actually, his dad was super wealthy, and he dedicated his life to serving the gods out of gratitude for the blessings of his family. He does not get paid. And she's like, oh, maybe I should stop judging people like I've just been thinking about for the last several chapters.
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, no joke. And then she's like, he's a good man, or at least an earnest man trying to be good. And yes, I know I'm making another judgment, but you can't go through life without making judgments. So, and then we cut to Blushweaver and Lightsong, who are bantering again. They've each got 20,000 lifeless under their control. They're in charge of the army, and there's a note here in the annotation that says Lightsong wonders if maybe he was a prude in his former life. I can answer this. He was indeed. That's why he's always so critical of Blushweaver's clothing choices. That and the fact that he's in love with her and feels a little jealous at how flagrantly she shows her body and attracts the attention of so many men. These are little things. He wouldn't even mention them to others, but he does feel them. So there you go. In case it was not clear to you, he is kind of in love with her.
Boo, she's the worst.
Yeah. Come on, Lightsong.
You could do better, man.
And so yeah, they have a long kind of going back and forth, like joking like they always do. But I don't know about you guys, but it feels kind of forced in this section to me. Like things are coming to a head, and I don't think they're as like laid back and simple as they were, back at the beginning when they were doing this.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's by design. It's like she always, which I think she kind of says here, she always knew that she always saw him this certain way. And when he got the other codes, she knew that was going to put them at odds because he wasn't just going to go along with whatever she said, that's part of the reason she respects him. But I think that's also part of the reason she's upset with him and doesn't see eye to eye with him, because she's like, I think this way and you don't think that way. But I still feel this way about you. It's real high school. It's real high school.
Yeah, being in charge of armies of zombies. Yeah.
That was
my high school experience. Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
It was. Okay, good. I was about to say we went to the same high school, so I feel like it should have been your experience. But
let's see.
I do feel like, considering the other storylines are all heating up and shit's going down in them, this one does sort of feel like they're still just bantering with each other. Where's the progression here?
That's fair.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe the progression is that like this feels forced. This isn't the same as it was. Things have changed. Like we're not.
Yeah, maybe
we're not. Like things aren't the same between us.
No one's gonna say it to each other, but they can feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And I'm not gonna go through their banter because it's just a lot of the same stuff, ridiculousness. But Lightsong does. Only a matchless group of idiots would give me control of their armies. She's like, well, they trust you. They're lazy. They want others to make the difficult decisions. We're all locked in here, expected to spend our time in idleness and pleasure, and then we're supposed to know what's best for our country? That's actually a really good point, I feel like.
As with many things, made me think of Futurama when they're picking the pharaoh on the wall of prophecy. Free us from thought and responsibility. We're dumb.
Yep.
One of the greatest bits.
Remember me.
Too exact, if you ask me.
And then she gets kind of real for a second. She's like, there's one thing that you said that's true. You are wonderful. And then she goes, you're not going to give me your command phrases, are you? And he shakes his head. I brought you into this. You always talk about being useless, but we all know that you're one of the few who goes through every picture, sculpture, and tapestry in the gallery, listens to all the poems and songs, listens most deeply to the pleas of his petitioners, which I don't know that we knew that.
All of the things she was saying in this section, I'm like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Not to throw shade at Lightsong, but it isn't the image. Of course, most of the perspective we get of him is in his own head. So if he's that self-deprecating, maybe we don't see it. But like most of the image we get from him is like he only does it because Larimar's like, hey, you have to do this. Like it doesn't seem like he really is making the choice to do it.
Maybe it's just a terrible reflection on every other one of the returned.
Right.
Maybe he is the most interested and the rest of them are just really awful.
Which is kind of funny because like she's talking about how this is like, you're so wonderful because you do all these things, and he just goes, you could do them too. She's like, oh no, fuck that.
Yeah.
You do the things that we're supposed to do. You're the only one who does them, apparently.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like the person saying that could also do it themselves and doesn't. Like, what?
Just got more
Yeah,
important
and
shit.
also like we get a glimpse of a god who's far better at listening and caring for their people through petitions than Lightsong, which I
Yeah.
know she said you're one of the best or the one of the ones who does the most, but like clearly he's not that great.
I think we get the impression that was like a new thing that Allmother was doing. She's like, we all used to do this, and now I'm going to do this. So maybe that's just not her historical approach.
I guess, but like, yeah, it just, I don't know. This particular sentiment from her, I'm like, either she's so clueless about what the other gods do, or the other gods are just so much worse at it than even Lightsong, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like Lightsong does that much. It's literally like Larimar's like, yeah, you're supposed to do this. He's like, okay, I'll do it.
I kind of assume that it's what Jamie said, that it's just like all the other gods really do suck that much. But there's another possibility. She could just be buttering him up more to try to get him to go along with her.
I guess, but this seemed like the only real moment between them. So if that was the case, that makes her character even worse. Like, you know, it just doesn't. It gives her almost no redemption, right? It's like there's not even a true affection there. It's all part of the game for her. Which if that's true, that really sucks.
Well, yeah, I can't see that being true, considering earlier she went out of her way to give shit to Ciri about it, to stick up for Lightsong there.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. She hadn't. I don't think she really had anything to gain by doing that. So she did that because she generally does believe in Lightsong on some level, I think.
Okay,
yeah, either that or she's just jealous, which it could be, but.
Yeah, but I mean, she didn't have to say the things that she said to Ciri. You know, she could be jealous and be like, stay away from my man or I'm going to cut you. I'm going to cut a bitch. I mean, she's like, he's one of the best and you're not going to corrupt him. Like, if she's just jealous, she didn't have to say it that way if she didn't believe those things. I think she makes another good point where she's like, can't you see how you inadvertently set yourself above everyone else? Like, you insult all of them and, like, point out things. It's like, you make us laugh even while you insult us, and basically you're pointing out the truth, the frivolity of all of this. So in doing that, you're the only one who's showing any wisdom. You're the only one who recognizes how ridiculous this is, and you don't keep that shit to yourself. You tell everybody. So that's why all these people are respecting you, because of the way that you act. And she's like, that's dumb. I knew you might resist me, but I thought I'd be able to influence you anyway. And he's like, well, I mean, you did influence me. You are the one who got me involved in all of this. I can't decide which feeling for you is stronger, Lightsong, my love or my frustration. He's like, I accept them both with honor. And then he goes off to sit in his box. And so Ciri is making her way down to the same place where Lightsong is so that she can, initiate the plan to get Lightsong on their side. And some priests show up. And they're like, oh, we're sorry. It's been decided that you shouldn't be exerting yourself while in your condition. She's like, what? What my condition? What the fuck are you talking about? The child vessel. We can't risk danger to it.
Bullshit.
And this is when she realizes how stupid she's been. They theorized that there was like a new returned infant out there somewhere and that they were going to secretly replace the God King with this infant. She doesn't need to actually be pregnant if that's the case. People just have to think that she had a child. So, they can lock her away and tell everyone she's pregnant and eventually bring this baby in and be like, yeah, this is the baby she had. And they could even be like, oh, she died in childbirth. How sad.
Yeah, that didn't even occur to me that would be a thing. They just
Didn't
have to
occur
make
to her
people think it's plausible. Yeah, I was right there with theory. I really didn't think that was a possibility. It makes a lot of sense now, but not where my brain was.
For what it's worth, me either. I was also surprised when I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this? And there's like, come on, this is for your own good. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Meanwhile, Vivenna and Vasher are in the crowd. And it is a very large crowd at this conclave of the gods here where they're going to vote. Because the vote is so important, people have saved their entry chip for something like this where all the gods show up. And Vasher's gone around to see if Denth is here, see if he can spot him. We know from a later chapter that Denth and Tongfa have been hiding out in the palace for like 2 weeks or something, waiting for Vasher to show up. So I guess that's where he is now. Not at this thing. And Nanrova, who we met, is down arguing against the war. But Vasher points out that at this point he's changed his mind twice on the same issue, so no one is really paying any attention to him anymore. And he hasn't explained, that people kidnapped his kid to get him to change his opinion because that would make him look real bad and weak. And can't necessarily afford that. And Vivenna has forced Vasher to leave Nightblood behind when they come here because it's very suspicious, carrying this giant black sword, very noticeable. And Vasher's uncomfortable. He's like, I don't like leaving Nightblood alone for too long. He's like, what's he going to do? We locked him in a closet. And eventually Vasher has to concede that she's right. It's too conspicuous to have the sword, but he still doesn't like it. I've just never been good at being unobtrusive. Denth used to make fun of me for that too. She's like, wait, you guys were friends? And he once again does not want to answer that question. And the God King is the last one, hasn't showed up for the meeting. So he's like, I'm going to go find out. Why not? And he comes back a few minutes later. He's like, congratulations, you're going to be an aunt. He's like, what are you? Ciri? And she's like, Ciri's pregnant? I cannot believe this.
Dr. Venture is pregnant?
Are you pregnant?
And this is where we finally come back around to the reason that she supposedly came here in the first place, where she's like, Vasher, we have to rescue my sister. You could have done it before she got knocked up, but whatever.
I forgot all about that.
Parlin's dead now, so he wasn't around to keep reminding her. Aren't we here to save Ciri?
Yeah, true.
And she says, I thought to protect her by ending the war, but if your hunch is right, then the God King himself is the one who wants to invade Idris, and Ciri won't be safe with him. Which I guess that just shows that Vasher has no idea what the hell he's talking about either, if that's his hunch. And he's like, okay, I'll do what I can. And now the priests are all going back to their gods to get votes on what we should do about this war. And we come back to Lightsong, who's watching all of this stuff happen. The gods are gonna vote through their priests, and that will become the will of Halandrin. Only the God King could veto a decision by the full Pantheon. So I guess he does have some official power within the government based on that.
Well, that's what the priests tell people, but then
Well, yeah.
Trilody's come out and say, he totally told me to fuck y'all, we're going to war.
Probably, right?
He personally told me to fuck your mothers while you watch and cry like little bitches.
Oh.
Did the God King really flip the bird at everyone like that? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what to tell you. He's crazy.
He flipped that bird so high. I can't even believe it. He's got super god powers, so it was like all shiny. His finger was all shiny. It's really cool. You should have been there.
Observe the divine middle finger.
In all
There's a
its
shirt.
glory. Observe the divine middle finger.
Now, Lightsong's a little bit internally pissy about the God King not showing up, so self-congratulatory on spawning a child he couldn't even bother with the future of his people. I'd hoped he was better than that.
All right, Lightsong. Calm down, bro.
You've never spoken to him, so
how would you know what he's like?
And so Larimar comes up, please favor us with your will, Lightsong, my god. And Lightsong just doesn't say anything. And so Larimar has to try again. Give me the knowledge I seek. Should we go to war?
I love it how you could read this in a couple of ways. You could be like, oh God, please give me the knowledge we seek. Or if you know a little bit about Larimar and Lightsong, it could be, oh God, please give me the knowledge.
Yeah. I'm sitting here waiting for knowledge that I know is, iffy at best.
I feel like it's got to be more of the first, because Lightsong even thinks this guy should be annoyed with me when he's not answering. He's like, what does it take to get this guy pissed off?
I know. I just like to amuse myself.
So it's green. The priests come back carrying flags. Green in this case means go to war. Red means no. And from the very beginning, from the first 7 people that come back, already green is winning by a considerable margin. And Lightsong's like, I mean, they're voting, but what do their votes even matter? They don't actually have any authority over the army. Me and Blushweaver are the only ones who get a say in whether the army moves at all. And so he just strolls over to Blushweaver, who has also not sent her answer back, but he thinks it's more that she likes the drama. And so she says, are you going to make your will known? And he's like, I mean, if I resist, the declaration of war will be for naught. Doesn't matter how they vote if I don't allow my lifeless to march. You would defy the will of the Pantheon? Well, it's my right, just as any of them have the same right. Just because she says you have the lifeless, though. And he's like, that doesn't mean I have to do what I'm told. And so Blushweaver sends her priest down, also with a green flag for going to war, which she spent the whole book telling us she doesn't want war. She just wants them to be prepared in case. And now she's voting for, yes, let's go to war. And he realizes that, like, commanding half of the troops, she's going to be, like, one of the most important people. She might come out of this war as the most powerful returned in the history of the kingdom. And so could I, for that matter. And he's thinking, and then he goes, you know what? I don't know. I need more time. And he turns and starts to leave. And she's like, what about the vote? Lightsong, you can't leave us hanging like this. And he's like, actually, I can. I'm frustrating like that.
That was an amazing move. I loved it.
Oh, such a power move. It's great.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was pretty good.
So I don't, if he doesn't vote, do they just go, yeah, green won, we're declaring war, but we can't move? Or do all the gods actually have to vote before they final? I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird.
I mean,
it's a weird thing.
You assume it's like, oh, we got a majority, so we can go to war. Yeah, but half the army's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You see half the lifeless dragging the other half behind. And it's like, yeah, maybe they'll wake up on the way.
That's a good picture. Maybe they just pick them up and like carry them over their heads.
The lifeless piggybacking each other the whole way.
A cinematic.
Yeah, right. That would look interesting on TV. Okay, so we cut to chapter 51. Our last chapter is we're back to Nightblood and Vasher. And like Nightblood's like, I'm glad you came back for me. It was very lonely in that closet. I don't like the darkness. And he's darkness. Vasher's like, you mean darkness like now because it's night outside? And he's like, no, in the closet. You can't even see. A person knows when they're in darkness, even when they can't see it. And they're sitting there like looking at Lightsong's palace after what just happened during today. And Nightblood's like, you shouldn't ignore me. I don't like it. We're going to kill him, aren't we? We should kill him. Come on, we should do it. We really should do it.
The most
He's like,
condescending and mocking of the gods. I'm like, okay, I can see how they got there.
Yeah. And Nightblood says he's evil. And Vasher's like, you don't even know what that is. And it says that was the crux of the problem, the issue that had dominated most of Vasher's life. It had taken 1,000 breaths to awaken an object of steel and give it sentience. Even Shashara hadn't fully understood the process, though she first devised it. Nightblood should not be alive, and yet he was. Shashara had been spurred on by the knowledge that she'd been shown up by Yes Steel and the development of Ichor alcohol. So she'd studied, experimented, practiced, and she'd done it. She'd learned to forge the breath of 1,000 people into a piece of steel. She and Vasher had spent much time in thought, and they'd chosen a simple yet elegant command: destroy evil. Only they had not foreseen that there was no way for Nightblood to know what evil was, given that it had never been alive. And Nightblood's like, I'm figuring out. I've had a lot of practice.
That old chestnut. What is evil? It's Robot Santa all over again, I tell you.
Well, yeah. And so Nightblood tries to argue it's like, that Lightsong, the god in there, he's evil because he has the power to start a war, and we don't want the war to start. So he's going to do what you don't want him to do. That makes him evil. Let's kill him.
Mm.
You told me war is bad.
Again, it's all, again, the theme is pretty heavy-handed. It's like it's all about perspective. It's like everything that opposes me or the guy I'm with is evil. Like if Vivenna starts hefting Nightblood around, are all Hallandren people evil? Like, it's just like, what is it?
Yep.
And that's when you realize Nightblood is Tom Cruise at the start of Minority Report.
You're not wrong. But
Nightblood, the one-man pre-crime division.
I like when Vasher finally says, no, we're not going to kill Lightsong. Nightblood's like, you locked me in a closet. You should apologize. It's like, I'm not going to apologize by killing someone. Let me just throw me in there. If he's evil, he'll kill himself. And Vasher's like, oh, geez, this sword's getting more and more subtle every year. He says, though Vasher knew he was just imagining things, projecting, awakened objects did not change or grow. They simply were what they were. That's the point where I was going to start reading this. And this is a very long annotation, so bear with me here. Brandon says, note that Nightblood is more capable of change than Vasher assumes. Vasher has a bit of a blind spot when it comes to Nightblood. He makes assumptions that he wouldn't make regarding other people or elements of awakening. It's hard for him to regard the sword without bias. If you want to know more about this, read the sequel, if I ever write it, which is tentatively named Nightblood.
Ooh.
And then he says, anyway, Nightblood is named for the smoke that he leaks. And he originally had a different name when he was created. Vasher himself dubbed the sword Nightblood. The blackness that leaks out is actually corrupted and consumed breaths. And then it says, I didn't want Nightblood to come across as a one-ring knockoff. He doesn't turn people's hearts or corrupt them. However, in order to be able to do his job and fulfill his command, he needed the ability to determine who was good and who was evil. This, of course, isn't an easy thing to determine. In fact, I don't think it's a black or white issue for most people. When Nightblood was created, the breaths infused in him did their best to interpret the command. What they decided was evil was someone who would try to take the sword and use it for evil purposes, selling it, manipulating and extorting others, that kind of thing. Someone who wouldn't want the sword for those reasons was determined to be good. If they touch the weapon, they feel sick. So that's good people. That's why Vivenna feels sick after touching the weapon. If others touch the weapon, their desire to kill and destroy with it is greatly enhanced. Nightblood himself, unfortunately, doesn't quite understand what good and evil are. However, he knows that his master can determine who is good and who is evil, using the sword's power to make people sick, or through other means. So he pretty much just lets whoever's holding him decide what is evil. And if the one holding him the sword determines deep within their heart that they are evil themselves, they will end up killing themselves with the sword, which is what we have repeatedly seen, where they kill everybody else and then end up killing themselves because they believe deep down that they are evil.
This is some like Egyptian scales of the underworld kind of stuff here.
Yeah, a little bit, except that it's very, as Joe pointed out, is very dependent on your perspective.
Yeah, true.
And so that's a little bit of the background or further explanation on how Nightblood works. Which is part of that was from an earlier scene, and I was like, I didn't want to talk about it until we got to the point where it explains that he was awakened and with this command, because without that, I don't feel like it makes as much sense.
You know, the thing I took out of a lot of that is the fact that the sequel is tentatively called Nightblood. So guess who's surviving the book?
Maybe. Could be a prequel sequel.
The sword.
Oh, speaking of names, just a fun fact for you guys that Brandon sort of announced not too long ago. The working title for Era 3 of Mistborn, just like the overall for the next Mistborn trilogy, is The Ghostbloods.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh,
yeah.
we know about that.
We know those
Ooh,
guys.
Yeah, we do.
So yeah, I heard that the other day, and so thought you guys would be interested. Nightblood says, you don't like killing returns. You're afraid of them. And Vasher thinks the sword's wrong, of course. But on the outside, Vasher supposed his hesitation did look like fear. It had been a long time since he dealt with the returned. Too many memories, too much pain. So instead, he makes his way to the God King's palace. And he thinks that once this palace had been a seaside outpost overlooking the bay, no city, no colors, just a stark black tower, and it amused him that they had become the home of the God King of the iridescent tones. And he awakens the rope belt that he uses with the command, climb things, then grab things, then pull me up. 3 commands in one awakening, a difficult task for some, for him, as simple as blinking. So that's cool. The rope can just go up there on its own and then pull you up. That's very useful. And Nightblood's like, who are we going to kill? And Vasher's like, it's not always about killing somebody. And then he's like, is she in here? And so the sword can hear his thoughts, but it's hard to interpret when it's just like fleeting thoughts. So he's thinking a little bit about Vivenna in connection with why they're actually here to rescue Ciri, and Nightblood just picks up on the Vivenna piece. Where is she? Is she here? She doesn't like me, but I like her. She's nice and she's pretty.
You don't have eyes.
Yeah. He's like, Nightblood doesn't really know what those words mean, but he just learned to use them. But the sword did have opinions, and it rarely lied, so it must really like Vivenna, even if it couldn't explain why. And then Nightblood says, she reminds me of a returned. And he goes, oh, that makes sense. She's descended from one. You can tell by the hair. There's a bit of returned in her. So there's a piece of explanation of the hair. I mean, he says you can tell by the hair that she's got some returned in her, so that must be why...
That's
the hair
that's
thing.
how we know. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of it. Although the thing that he said in the other annotation about it being passed only if you're in line for the throne doesn't make sense if it's genetic.
Yeah.
To me at least. But we know based on Hoyd's story that and what Vasher has said in the past that they're descendant from a returned, right?
Yep. Yeah, Hoyd told us about that. I don't remember if Hoyd connected it to the hair, which is why I pointed it out here, because it was like, oh yeah, that's how you know, because of the hair. And so Nightblood's like, oh, that's who we're after. You're rescuing Vivenna's sister. You like Vivenna too. And Vasher's like, nonsense. Her sister, the queen, is somehow the key to all this. As soon as she arrived, the real move to start war surged. At the very least, she's going to make a handy hostage for the Landrins, so we're going to get her out of here.
You don't know her dad that well.
That's why she's sent, because she won't.
That's sad.
It is, right?
Heck, man, we haven't seen that guy since the start of the book, but we will always have that ammo.
I mean, at this point, we may not see him.
Yeah,
that
well,
may have
true.
been the only experience we have with this guy.
Yeah.
And so Vasher sneaks in and finds like a maid and grabs her, and he's like, "Tell me where the queen is." And she tells him the southern corner of this floor, and then he ties her up and leaves her. Like, you won't kill a god who plans to march his armies to war, but you'll nearly choke a young woman to death. And Vasher thinks it's like, Nightblood asks this, but it doesn't have the accusation that a human would have put into it. Nightblood is actually just asking a question. Like, I don't understand what the difference here.
Well, I think the thing I picked up from this is like just from what you were saying about in the annotations about it. He held the sword against her cheek and then she vomited, and I didn't quite catch that. But now that you've described all of Nightblood's attributes, and like, oh, so this maid is actually pure of heart or something because she vomited rather than getting tempted by the sword. So, this poor maid deserved better.
So Vasher's just like, look, I don't understand my morality either, so just don't confuse yourself. And so he finds the door to the room that is supposedly Sirius, at least that's what the maid told him. And there's a bunch of soldiers guarding it. And he's like, oh, this is okay. He didn't exactly expect this. And he plans and thinks for a minute. And then he's like, all right, I'll just throw Nightblood in there and see what happens.
Well, this has always worked before.
Yep. Except while they start fighting over Nightblood, something grabs him from behind. It is an awakened rope. And he pulls out a knife and cuts it. But then somebody tackles him. And a bunch more dudes have come out of the other rooms after the fight starts around Nightblood. And he grabs a cloak and goes, grab things other than me, and throws it at a dude so that it grabs him. And then more, like dozens of guys are coming out, and they basically, jump him and hold him down and don't let him talk to awaken more things. And eventually, after the fighting is done, Denth walks out. My good friend, very good to see you. Vasher spits, and he's like, still as eloquent as ever, I see. You know the best thing about you, Vasher? You're solid, predictable. Guess I am too, in a way. Hard to live as long as we have without falling into patterns, eh?
Yeah, like that fucking speech pattern, dude.
Yeah, that explains it right there. He's like, yeah, we fall into patterns. The one more annotation I had was this scene, the fight with like the awakened ropes and stuff. He says there are small hints in this scene about what it was like during the Many War, with people awakening ropes to toss boulders and things like that. It was a pretty dramatic conflict. The first one where lifeless and awakeners were put to a great deal of use in battle. So yeah. Fun little note. Now just imagine like wild ropes as catapults, just chucking boulders at the other side. A bunch of guys died. Like Vasher feels good about the fact that he took down like a dozen guys, probably between him and Nightblood, before they got him stopped. And Denth's just like, mercenaries, no risk too great, assuming the pay is right. And you were always to be my payment, Vasher. I owe you for Shashara, even still. We've been hiding here waiting for 2 weeks, knowing that eventually Vivenna would send you to save her sister. And here comes Tonkfa. He's got Nightblood wrapped up in a blanket. And Denth is like, just throw that out somewhere far away. And Tonkfa's like, I don't know, Denth. I kind of think we should keep it. It could be very useful. And you can see the beginning of that lust showing in his eyes. So Denth just like smacks him in the back of the head. Ow! Stop whining. I just saved your life. Go check on the queen and then clean up this mess. I'll take care of the sword. You always get so nasty when Vasher's around. Like Tonkfa, the sadist who likes pain, like giving things and people pain just for fun. And he's like, oh, Denth, you always get nasty when Vasher's around. Pouting he got slapped.
He can dish it out, but he can't take it.
Yeah, exactly. And for a minute, Vasher's like, maybe Denth will get taken in by Nightblood. But no, he's too strong-willed, and he has nearly as much history with the sword as Vasher does. Take away all his awakened clothing and then hang him up in the room over there. He and I are going to have a long talk about what he did to my sister. And that's the end of our chapters.
Denth got very mustache twirly right there.
A little bit, yep. Maybe we're finally seeing the real Denth that we've never really seen before. So, there we go. We have officially, I'm going to say again, entered into Sanderlanche territory. Things are happening. Vasher's been captured. Things are coming to a head on all fronts here. So, what do you guys think? Let's do predicaments. What is going to happen?
Oh, I don't know. I came out pretty bold last week. I think that Ciri's in some real trouble. I don't know how things are going to play out with Denth and Vasher in here. If we're going to sort of the prediction that maybe Vivenna would become a returned, I would assume she's going to have to make her way to the God King's palace now. Maybe when Vasher doesn't come back at an agreed time or something, I feel like she'll probably come after him. It'd be good to see her maybe put some of her new skills to the test, especially if she's pretty good instinctively. It'd be interesting to see what she could do in a bit of a fight. Yeah, I don't know that Susabrun will make it out. I don't really know how he could still remain the head. I feel like the whole thing has to collapse from here. The whole having a figurehead and the priests running the show. I think it kind of has to be the end of an era and the start of a new era. I have a feeling that maybe like Lightsong will actually give his breath away. I can't imagine him wanting to keep going after all of this and be involved. And just there's a lot of talk about, it's been so long since someone gave up their breath for somebody, and why even bring all of that up if you're not going to do anything with it? So Lightsong might not make it out. I think Vivenna will maybe die and be returned. Or maybe you can give your deific breath to somebody and make them a returned, or I don't know. I'm not sure how you would choose that. Maybe that would be interesting to see if they come across that way. I was kind of piecing it together from your comments in the annotations and then what we read in the book. Maybe Vasher is one of the 5, is it the 5 scholars or the 5, whatever they were?
Yeah, 5 scholars is what.
It is 5 scholars. Yeah. We've had Vivenna make comments on that before, that he's clearly studied everything, and the fact that Shashara was one of them. I think that's what you said in the annotations.
I remember if it said that she was one of the 5
or
scholars. Or
she'd done a lot of research.
I think in the story it said that Shashara was a genius at coming up with these things better than even he was, and that she was upset because Steel developed Ichor alcohol and beat her to it, so she had to do something even better.
And Dent said that was developed by one of the scholars, didn't he?
One of the scholars, yeah. I think that's where I linked that together, so that maybe 3 of them are 3 of the 5. It would explain how they know so much and how Vasher is still so good at what he's done, and we believe he's been around for a really long time. So I reckon that maybe he is one of the 5. How the story is going to wrap up, I don't know. I think Ciri's still in trouble. I still would kind of like to see the Pankal backstabbing thing come to fruition. I think that was probably a good prediction earlier from the guys. But we still don't really know who's orchestrating all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Denth is orchestrating it, or is kind of he's been hired by someone to orchestrate it, but he's going to take out his personal feelings on Vasher.
Yeah, I mean, he says in this scene that you were always going to be my payment, Vasher, which definitely makes it sound like he's not in charge here. He's being paid. Yeah. He's
being paid. Vasher's the payoff there. So yeah, okay, then that's not really a bold prediction at all. I was thinking about it, and I don't know if we get an answer to it in the book, but maybe given the nature of the crew and that Arsteel was part of the crew, that he got a hold of Nightblood, and maybe Nightblood killed him rather than it being Vasher's swordsmanship. I don't know whether we ever had it confirmed that Nightblood killed him or if he was killed. Because they said Vasher killed him.
Yeah,
and I think admits that yes, we killed him, but I don't know whether it was Nightblood or if it was Vasher.
Yeah, I think that was okay. So Denth keeps arguing Vasher couldn't have killed Arsteel in a duel, and then somebody said, Tongfar, somebody's maybe he used that sword, and then somebody else was like, no, there were no black marks in the wound or whatever.
Okay, forgot that bit. Never mind. Selective memory, remembering.
So still not sure how it happened.
Still not sure. I don't know. I feel like there's got to be more to that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether we'll ever get the ends to that and the answers to that, but I don't know. There's so many things, and we always get to this point in the book. There's so much, and I still am a bit concerned about how it's going to wrap up in 2 weeks worth of reading. But
isn't that always the mystery?
It always is. We always get to this point, and I'm like, I actually have no idea what's going on anymore. There's so much. I don't know how it's going to all come together.
I will add one thing that may or may not, or that may support or may not support some of your theorizing. You guys may have noticed that a name we hear today is similar to a name that we are already familiar with.
Well, Yes Steel and R Steel.
Yes Steel and R Steel are very similar names that they both end with steel. And after the book was over, somebody asked Brandon, "Are these two characters related?" And he says, "Yes, they are brothers."
How fucking old is everyone?
Yeah, and Denth is it Denth and Shashara are siblings? That was what we.
That seems to be the implication. I don't know that it outright says that. He says, "I owe you for Shashara," and then he ends the chapter saying, "We're gonna have a talk about what you did to my sister." So there's definitely an implication there.
These guys all
that's
go
what I was
way
getting.
back.
Yeah.
Everybody does seem to go way back, right?
In the Wayback Machine. So I like a lot of Jamie's theories. I'm going to try to connect the dots between some of these and things that they'd have said, things that I was thinking. So I'm still Vasher is returned. I'm still on that train. I agree with Jamie. I think he's one of the 5 scholars. I think the 5 scholars are Vasher, Sashara, Denth, R-Steel, and now this Yes Steel that we've heard about. I think those were the 5 scholars. Based on them all knowing each other for many, many years, based on us now knowing that R-Steel and Yes Steel were brothers. They've all got a lot of history. I was trying to think how all of these people fit in as the 5 scholars, and I was like, well, it can't be Tonk Fa, because that guy's dumb.
He doesn't seem very scholarly, does he?
No. And so
he's very smart at torture. The other scholars just like now Tonk, I don't think this quite fits with our guidelines here.
Right. Yeah, and I almost went that direction. I was almost going to think, well, maybe it is Tonk Fa, and his specialization was organic awakening stuff. But no, he doesn't strike me as somebody who can awaken at all. I think he's just crazy and creepy and gross. So we've got these people now with the introduction of the name R-Steel. It kind of fell into place for me, especially when Data confirmed that they're related. So I think those were the 5 scholars. Again, how that plays into our story that we're hearing now, I don't know, except to think based on what the 5 scholars, based on the little information that we have about the 5 scholars, obviously they're people that are very knowledgeable about awakening, which fits in with what we've seen Vasher do. It fits in with the creation of a sentient sword for Sashara. It fits in with how they can all live so long, because even if they're not returned, let's say my theory is correct and Vasher is returned, the others don't necessarily have to be returned. They could just have a lot of breaths, which allows them to not age.
Yeah, with your 5th heightening, you have agelessness.
Right. So potentially these people are just living forever. And so who's the oldest? I don't know. I'm going to say Vasher's the oldest just because that sounds the most interesting. But I have no idea who's the oldest of the 5 scholars. But those are the people I'm going to say are the 5 scholars. And so the only thing I can think of at this point is if Denth's holding a grudge against Vasher for something that happened to his sister, and we know his sister created Nightblood, my thought goes to something went wrong with Nightblood and Vasher had to stop Shashara, kill Shashara. Something bad happened between him and Denth's sister, and I would guess with her creating Nightblood and them not knowing what it was going to do, it has something to do with that, which could also explain why Vasher continues to wield it, or not wield it, but hold it, because he doesn't want anything bad to happen with the sword going forward. So maybe that fits in there. What as far as what's going to happen going forward, I think that Dak has been on the right trail. I think Pankal actually hired Denth, and because when Vasher invades the palace, the people that are closest to Ciri's room are Denth's people, and we know that the Pankal servants are the ones that are supposed to be hanging out there. So if he's in with Bluefingers, then that would make sense that he could get in the palace and be right there, because the Pankal people are the ones that are supposed to be closest.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what I'm thinking, in which case Bluefingers could be big bad, in which case our heroes could be in more trouble than we know. We don't know yet what's going to happen. We really don't know what's become of Ciri. He asked Tonk Fa to check on her, so
presumably she's not dead, but
presumably she's not dead.
Well,
which
if Tonk Far is the one being asked to check on her,
Right. Things may not be going well for her. I don't know, but my guess is Tonk Fa's got it under control. He never did anything to Vivenna until
That's true.
After they'd kind of unmasked themselves. So obviously he's got some modicum of self-control. But yeah, I mean, what could happen going forward? I don't know. I like what Jamie said about maybe Lightsong not making it out. He's got that deific breath that he could use to help somebody who he's going to help with it. I don't know if that's the case. And then we still got these people at each other's throats. And like, that's another thing too. Like, if Lightsong does give up his breath, when does he do it after the threat of war is over? I'm just trying to figure out the sequence of events going forward. Even if I have some theories about what might happen, I don't know in what order they could happen, which kind of would change maybe what I think. So I think that's about as many conclusions as I've been able to draw so far. And again, not to harp on this too much, this book has so many little interesting things in it. I really wish that the pacing was just a little bit different, because I'm really enjoying it, but there's just like, I don't know, if it was just a little bit different, I think it would have been even better. But anyway,
it's interesting what you point out about Lightsong, and you're like, I have these theories, but I don't know what order they're going to happen in, because like you say, you have the theory that he's going to give up his breath and die or something, right? But remembering from the last section, he is now the only one in the world with the code for half of the lifeless army. Mm-hmm. So what happens to him could have a very big impact. Like if he suddenly dies, then that half of the lifeless army can't do anything.
Right. Until they break them, which could take a long time, or if they even can break them, I don't know, because like I was mentioning before, the God King doesn't know how to awaken, so I don't know how God King power breaks them. So
yeah, everyone keeps thinking the God King could do this or that, but nobody knows that the God King can't really do much of anything, because he's supposedly the only man to ever reach the 10th heightening or whatever is what they tell us earlier. But so he would have what it points out, like, what does he say? That you have to be the 6th heightening to get like this innate ability to awaken things without ever having to practice or whatever. So, I mean, the God King would have that at the 10th heightening, except that he can't awaken things. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, we've been told by credible sources that the tongue is necessary. Being able to speak is necessary for these commands.
Yes.
There's not
you have to speak in your own native language and clearly. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because it's like, it's not one of those bait and switch where it's like, oh, but his intent was so strong in his mind that he commanded non-verbally. I don't know.
I mean, maybe it's possible that like the power that you get at one of those heightenings that nobody has ever reached before is non-verbal awakening. Like he's going to suddenly reach the 11th heightening, which no one in history has ever gotten to, and that's non-verbal. It could happen, but
yeah, I guess that's true.
It would be kind of out of nowhere if that did happen.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, like you reiterated, there's just like so many things that could still happen, because, and I think that's a cool part of the book, because there is a mystery, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like at this point in the book, this is the detriment of the pacing. Like at this point of the book, I feel like we should have some semblance of like what's going on, because I feel like there's still so many things with the priests and stuff. It's like we have no idea what their plan is, or what's going on, or who's evil and who's good, which again, all about perspective, but at the same time it's like, come on, give me something to hold on to in these dire times, something that I can sink my teeth into and say, here's where I want to stand. I stand with Vasher.
No, you're going to get to the end and it will still be completely unclear. Like, who's good, who's bad, we don't know. Everybody just died. It was weird.
Yeah, there was a cataclysmic event that was completely unforeshadowed. A giant meteor struck Helandrin and everybody died. It
was all gray, so no one could see it coming.
Yeah, there you go.
Brandon admitted in the annotations that he painted himself into a corner and he didn't know how to end the book, and so that's what he did. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Maybe in the sequel I'll figure out how to undo that."
Yeah, in the sequel, all of this will come out
if I ever get around to writing it.
The sequel, titled Nightblood, a post-apocalyptic thriller starring the Sword making his lonely way across the
The
ruined
Sword's the
landscape.
only one left.
He's just flipping himself over as he crosses the rocks.
Yeah. Somehow he figured out after like decades of just laying on the ground that like he somehow invested himself with like legs so he can walk around and be like, hey, here I go traveling around.
I mean, okay, so actually, that's speaking of, that's a good thing you can attempt to predict is Denth knows how dangerous this sword is, and now he's going to try to take care of it. So what's Denth going to do?
I mean, he told Tong Fa to just like throw it somewhere away. So it didn't sound like he had like a specific plan in mind. He was just like, get it out of here.
Wrap it up with weights and drop it into the ocean, and hopefully Godzilla doesn't find it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sword. I don't know that you would need to wrap it in weights, quite honestly.
Right.
I would think.
Yeah, well.
We don't know what Dent's history with the sword specifically is. If his sister made it, and if I'm correct, something happened between Vasher and his sister because of the sword, I mean, his idea could be like, that thing's evil. It caused the death of my sister. Get it away. Or we don't know that she's dead. Caused something bad to happen to my sister. Get it away from here. Get it away from me. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, so I really like this whole Five Scholars thing that the other two have sort of set up with Steel, Yes Steel, Shashara, Denth, or Baratrelides, I guess his name was, and Vasher. So I am going to take that and I'm going to punt that even further. And I'm going full volcano on this one. Yes Steel, the last one, who we've only had mentioned in passing, let's say it was Lightsong. Now we had the whole thing about Vasher like talking about going in to kill him, but he didn't actually go in there and see him, so we don't know if Vasher would recognize him were that the case. The thing I'm basing this all on is Lightsong's vision of the woman in his vision with the black sword. Now I still think like it applies to Vivenna, but Larimar knows more about Lightsong than we do. And when Lightsong asked him, the woman in my vision, was she someone important to me? And Larimar answered to the best of his ability, that being that, yes, this woman was important to you. To my knowledge, she's still alive. So Larimar has been might have also been around for a while. Like he might have been a priest who's just served, who was serving Arsteel and then arranged for not Arsteel, Yes Steel. God, that's confusing. To come back as a return. Like who knows how long Larimar's been around. So he was thinking of Shashara. He was putting his own interpretation of Lightsong's interpretation of that painting on. It's like, oh, woman in a black sword. Well, that's got to be her. So yeah, Yes Steel at some point died and has come back as a returned, and he spent this whole thing just questioning, why am I here? Because Yes Steel might have different opinions of the lifeless and the returned. So subconsciously he's questioning. It's like, why the fuck would I be this? Yeah.
Could explain his investigative nature as well.
Yeah.
You could be on to something there.
Yeah.
I should probably note, to make sure that we're all clear, that Larimar tells him that the young woman in his dreams is somebody that was important to him and that is still alive. That's not necessarily the same person as the woman that he sees in the painting, because Joey was even guessing the person in the painting was a man, that it might have been Vasher. So could be two different women, and I don't think that we can make the assumption they're the same.
Yeah, but it comes down to fallibility, and if Larimar's just a dude, Lightsong describes to him, this is what I saw. Larimar uses his own personal biases and memories to try and fill in the blanks there, like we're doing, really, with these predictions.
True.
Like, he thinks he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he could be entirely wrong, but like he has information that he thinks is accurate. So, yeah. Again, I don't know how fucking long this has all been going down for, because we've thought that, Vasher is like super old and like has been around for quite a long time. And if that's the case, then Denth also must have been around a long time. And Arsteel has been around a long time. And who fucking knows how long it's been since Shashara died. And, you know, if I'm wrong about Yes Steel, like, how long ago was all that? So, timing-wise, I've got no idea what the scale of anything is here.
Right.
But, yeah, Larimar could be, like, using that information. And he has flawed information. Like, no one knows what happened to Shashara, so he doesn't know. he just thinks, oh, yeah, I think she's still alive. We haven't heard that she died, so...
Could be.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, it would be nice to tie a Light Song into all this, because, like, there's such a mystery around who he is, or who he was, and, like, we're really running out of possibilities in time and suspects to just go, oh, yeah, you were just some random detective dude who was the son of a potter. How did he die?
Who's also a prude, we learned this time.
Oh, yeah, he's also a prude. Do we know what the gap is between someone dying and them coming back as a returned?
I don't know that we do. I feel like the only thing we've heard was when Hoyd told the story of the first returned. I think he said that, like, the guy died and, like, that night came back or something like that. I don't remember for sure.
But that could be one
like,
guy. It doesn't necessarily apply to all of them.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It's like, even if we know for one of them, that doesn't mean it's the same all the way across the board.
Yeah, so it's possible that there was, like, some group who were dedicated to the Five Scholars, like their lab assistants or something, and Yes Steel died hundreds of years ago, and they're just like, oh shit, put his body on ice in case we need it for whatever reason, and Larimar's just the descendant of one of these guys, and they found a way to bring him back as a lifeless, not a life return. Fuck's sake.
Returned. I know, right? There's too many kinds of things coming back from the dead.
Yeah. And then, like, when he finally woke up as a return, they're just like, oh shit, okay, I'm his priest, yeah, and just trying to explain stuff to him without breaking the returned rules or whatever.
Yeah, that would make the situation very complicated. I agree.
Because it's perfectly uncomplicated before that.
Well, no, I just mean I just mean that, like, it'll be interesting to see someone try to explain this to Light Song later.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, you guys have all, and I may have steered it slightly, I guess, because I did mention that Denth was like, oh yeah, one of the Five Scholars invented this thing, and then we're told in these chapters, oh yeah, this specific guy invented this thing. So it does kind of, I may have steered you guys towards thinking these other guys are involved, but yeah, you guys have all joined in this theorizing about Five Scholars, so that's an interesting direction. Not that I mean, who knows how relevant it's going to be. I do that we paid them no attention until now, and then all of a sudden they're the crux of everything. Right. I do like how it would be kind of funny if you guys are like, yeah, Denth is one of these Five Scholars, and then in that earlier scene he's like, yeah, Ichor alcohol was invented by one of the Five Scholars. I don't remember which one.
He might not give a shit.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, he's an inveterate liar, so.
Yeah, what I was going to say, what makes any of us believe that for a second Denth is telling the truth about anything ever?
It's true. Okay. No, this is, as we approach the end, we still got new interesting possibilities cropping up, so I like this.
If I'm right and Light Song is Yes Steel, like he happens upon Clod in the middle of the climax, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, I know this corpse. Brother? And
My brother!
Clod is just, brother, and gives him a hug.
That would be a very
I also loved
Universal Monsters ending.
Yeah, right.
Right. I loved the escalation where Jamie came in with a little bit of Five Scholars theory, and then Joe took it a little bit further, and Dak's like, I'm just gonna punt this, see how far I can send this down the field.
Straight to the volcano. Let's go.
Okay. Let's do our session. I'm still trying to decide if we should keep it as a recurring segment, but we're going to do the word of Brandon of the day. And this time I went out and cataloged a bunch that I'm going to that I have for us to use at various times. And I'm going to let you guys vote on this. I've got Mistborn stuff. I've got Elantris stuff. I've got crossover between Mistborn and Elantris, or Elantris and Warbreaker. I've got Warbreaker stuff. What kind of word of Brandon would you guys like?
Oh, weird. My 2 cents would be either Elantris or Warbreaker, because I feel like that's Elantris Warbreaker, because that's we've been talking a lot about those crossovers today, or Warbreaker. Okay. That would be my suggestion, since that's the book we're on.
Agreed. My first response was going to be the crossover Elantris Warbreaker.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. So the questioner says, the magic system for Elantris has a lot of drawing things, and the system for Warbreaker has a lot of colors. Would you be able to combine that? Like, do a rune with colors? And Brandon says, that's possible. Yes, it's an interesting combination. It would work in interesting ways. So what do you guys, can you imagine how this would work? It seems bizarre to me.
I don't know that I understood it, but are we talking about an individual was invested with both like abilities that could use both, or you could draw something in color that someone could then draw upon? Like, sorry, not like draw, but like
Yeah, no, I knew what you
the
meant.
color. Yeah.
I'm assuming that it's more of the former, but once again, I only have the information that I've just given you, so I don't really know either.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'm just trying to like picture how these two magics would work together and what that could look like. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You could awaken something to like create your aeons, I guess, of sorts. I don't know. They just seem, even though like you could have something that's color and something that's illustrated, they seem to function very differently. I don't know how you could cross them over.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the only way to me that they cross over is like, well, I guess that's not true because we saw what's her name use door in a different world, but I was like, I was thinking you'd have to go with breaths to sell, but I guess that's not technically true.
Yeah, you get that purified door juice going on.
Yeah, you'd have to have some purified door because otherwise you'd have to be on sell for it to work, right? Like, but if I'm understanding the breaths correctly, unless I'm miscalculating something specific about the magic, which again we don't know that much about, it doesn't sound like their magic is limited to the world you're on because you just walk around with these breaths inside of you invested in you. So potentially those could be used on any other planet.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, like you said, we don't know for sure, but it seems like, if they're part of you, then why not?
Yeah, but back to the question at hand, I don't really know. I think because I know so little about how breath and commands work, I don't know how exactly you could do it unless it'd be something like Jamie said, like you have it make you awaken something to make aeons for you, and it's like a constant stream of like, I guess you could like make a factory of making aeons, so that way like, because we know they produced things with the aeons, right? Like they made things and created things, so like you could automate something to do that, which could be extremely useful or helpful depending on the situation. But I don't know. That's about as much. It's about as much as I can really wrap my mind around it. I think it might have been hard for Brandon based on his response to wrap his mind around it, because it's like,
right, yeah, he's just like, that could be interesting.
Yeah, what are the variables?
It sounds like a vague sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
You can do that.
It sounds like he's like, let's not discount that, but yeah, it could be interesting. But yeah, okay, that's it.
If I ever write a sequel, I'll include that reasoning.
That is something I will ponder at the bar.
Yeah.
And you see him, he's like 6 Jack and Cokes down. He's like, hey man, what if runes but colors?
Oh shit, dude, that's so sweet. Wait, where'd you come from? I was over there the whole time.
It was Hoyd the whole time. Actually, now that I look at these, a lot of these have to do with Hoyd, the word of Brandon's that I've chosen. I didn't realize that. Anyway, any thoughts there?
We like the sexy drifter. It's fine.
He's the Stan Lee of Brandon.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. Except, he's fictional.
Did you have any thoughts you wanted to throw in on that, Dak, before we move on?
No, I struggled to wrap my. I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? And didn't really get much further than that. That's
fair. I'm kind of with all of you, honestly. Even though I know more about it at this point than you, I'm still kind of like, I'm not sure how does do.
Is it weird that I kind of, in light of like that recent episode, I kind of want to hear if he put that question to Poet, what Poet would say.
Well, what do you think like aeons and color would do together?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'd come up with something really creative, but like if I was in him, I'd just be like, I don't know what the fuck that means, so I don't know.
Fuck you're talking about, little kid. But you're special. You reach down.
You spoke from the heart.
And you touch your brother hot.
Yeah. Give me the map, Scott.
Classic. Okay.
It's classic.
We have no reviews or patrons this week, but we have one email that I'm going to read. And Joe's going to love this one because the title is Joey Joe Dad Shabba Dad? ?
Huh?
This is from Hayden again.
Oh, because he got to the part where I became a dad too. I get it.
Yep. He says, "Hi, Sander Parents crew, Brando Mum and Daddos. If only I were creative."
Oh man, this is okay. I'll get the shovel out and I'm filling in this rabbit hole before it gets any deeper.
Huge congrats to Papa Joe and his wife. Another surprise baby
don't
announcement.
call me Papa Joe. That's got
that does have some.
That's got some
connotations.
It's got some bad connotations to it. Let's not go there.
What, the pizza chain?
Papa Joe was the Penn State football coach that knew about molestation among his players like for years and years and did nothing about it.
See, I was misthinking
Yikes.
it too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I'm now on episode 121, start of Baby Break 2. In my August 9th email, I tried to predict your favorite Cosmere books. I guessed that Dak would love Wayne. Now that I'm nearing the end of Bands of Mourning, I imagine he took great offense to that prediction.
Yeah, wow. Of all of the audience predicaments, who could have predicted something so wrong? That'd be like somebody saying I was going to love Spook.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, whoops. Big swing and a miss on my part. Sorry, fam. I doubt that Wayne's focus...
You had a volcano of your own.
I doubt that Wayne's focus in The Lost Metal won Dak over. Not completely. Your podcast read of the standalone Cosmere books, Elantris, Sixth of Dusk, have been really helpful. I never fully digested the plot when listening on audiobook, but it was easier when you all discussed it. Wasing to the time of next, Colo Hayden. P.S. I'll email again when fully caught up, or if there's another sneaky baby announcement. Attached is the screenshot of my 5-star rating on Spotify. So Hayden did leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify.
God, I sure hope there's not a baby announcement. At least for me.
I was gonna say there's no sneaky baby announcements here either.
Yeah.
for the time
baby.
Secret baby.
There you go. We get to predict Secret Kendra. Maybe
Yeah. Who's gonna have the baby this year?
Yeah, I mean, given.
Let's see. This guy's giving us a few yucks. So I'm trying to think of a good one for him. One of my favorites has always been a Tin Eye. Even though I don't like Spook, I do like the Tin Eye power. So I'm gonna give him old Tin Eye.
Okay, cool. Spooking it up. All right.
Yeah, I guess spooking it up is a better alternative than to like say Straff venturing it up.
Yeah, no, good point. So I think that about wraps it up. For next time, we're going to read 4 more chapters. So the next 4 chapters. Did I really close my document? Okay. So 52, 53, 54, and 55, which that's our penultimate episode of Warbreaker next week. So if you're following along, you're going to be leaving really in the thick of things. We're going to be ending in chapter 55 in the middle of the Sanderlanche for real. So everyone's going to hate me probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, that about does it. About wraps her all up, as they say. Happen to know that a baby Susbron is on the way.
but not actually.
Yeah, not actually.
At least not the Siri knows. I guess she could be pregnant and not know it yet.
I guess so.
But anyway, so thanks everybody. If you want to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and X and Facebook and Patreon, where I have a little break on Patreon now until the next box comes. Actually, I got the shipping notice a couple days ago that my next Sanderson box has shipped. It is going to be the Warbreaker box, so that's appropriately timed.
Ooh.
So yeah. If you want to see me opening that, then it'll hopefully be up probably not too long after this episode, if not before this episode goes up on our Patreon.
I'm
so
surprised.
Check that out.
I'm surprised the Vasher pin isn't in that box.
Right? Yeah. But anyway, so thanks everybody. 4 chapters for next time. Only 2 more episodes of Warbreaker left, and then we're going right into Way of Kings. So everyone who's been waiting all this time for Stormlight, your wait is almost over. Music by Miracle of Sound. And wasing to the time of next. Colo, DS Fashion.